Tim Burton's Nightmare Before Christmas, Chapter 21. Need to hurry up and get this over with so I can go to bed and cry myself to sleep like a man. In the meantime, let's get this story rolling. Christmas Eve. In the world of the living, bulletins spread reports of the imposter's arrest and Santa Claus's return. Broadcasters were anxious to put their listeners' fears to rest. Good news, folks, reporters said. Santa Claus, the one and only, hang on, give me a second. Santa Claus, the one and only, has finally been spotted. Old Saint Nick appears to be traveling at supersonic speed. He's setting things right, bringing joy and cheer wherever he goes. I did not know Santa Claus was a Sonic the Hedgehog fan. Santa Claus drove his team of reindeer swiftly from house to house, squeezing down chimney to capture the demonic toys Jack had delivered and replace them with the sweet presents boys and girls had put on their list. He snatched up the evil jack-o'-lantern in the box, and the witches had cursed to attack the husky boy in glasses and gave him a candy cane instead. He caught the possessed, gunshot-ridden duck and flying vampiric teddy bear, which had cornered the brother and sister in their bedroom and left a toy sailboat and a stuffed pink bear in their place. He took the shrunken head from the wide-eyed boy in plain pajamas whose parents had passed out from shock and gave the child a waggy-tailed puppy wrapped in a bow. The newscasters continued, "Yes, folks, Kris Kringle has pulled it out of the bag and delivered Christmas to excited children all over the world." The good news reflected in the witch sisters' scolding cauldron, but none of the town's residents heard it. The witches slumbered on the floor of the of their cot, if I can talk. When they'd heard the tragic news of Jack's crash, they had burst into tears and prodded everyone out with their brooms. The monsters had slumbered through town, wailing like banshees as they listened to the mayor's lament over his megaphone while he drove up and down the streets. Almost all the residents of Halloween Town cried themselves to sleep, from the undersea gal asleep in the muck fountain water to the vampires hanging upside down in their attic. Only the undead ensemble still haunted the street with a dirge for the fallen Pumpkin King. Now the witches twitched awake at the sound of a car horn honking empathically. I think it's impatiently. Give me a second. Emphatically. They sat up, removing their eye masks to reveal eyes puffy and red from mourning. They exchanged looks. That horn sounded like it belonged to the mayor's hearse, but instead of sobbing into his megaphone, now the mayor was honking in excited bursts Could it be? Could the mayor have good news? The witch sisters tossed their blankets and freshened up by rubbing extra dirt in their fingernail beds. They wanted to look their best in case Jack was back from the dead. Isn't he technically? In town, the gatekeeper yawned awake and lit his lantern when he saw the dark hearse bumping through the hinterlands. He hurried to raise the gate. The sound of the honking and the excited speculation of townspeople carried through the streets, waking every resident in Halloween Town. The Cyclops threw open his shutters on the top story of his angular stone cot. From his vantage point, he could see the mayor's car approaching the gate with several figures inside. Jack, he cried. Jack's back. The undersea gal popped up from her slime bath in the fountain. She blew slime out of her gills. Jack, the winged demon who had just woke up and was hanging upside down on the fountain spot, threw open his wings. Jack's okay. The mayor's hearse joyfully churned into the town square as sleeping residents woke up, rubbing their eyes, hurried to pull on their clothes, and rushed out to meet the mayor's hearse. He's all right, cried out the creature under the stairs. With Sally sitting next to him, the mayor parked in front of town hall and shut off the jack-o'-lantern-shaped headlights. Lock, shock, and barrel tumbled down from the top of the hearse, taking excitedly about their brave battle with Oogie Boogie to anyone who'd listen. The mayor immediately began shaking hands. Sally remained in the front seat of the hearse, enjoying the excitement of the crowd. Everyone only had eyes for Jack. In his black pinstripe suit, Jack Skellington had never looked more dashing. He descended from the top of the hearse, bowed deeply to the crowd, and started up the stairs to town hall, laughing, and joyous cries rang out around him. The corpse kid clung to his leg, beaming up at him with his rotten smile. He'd told Jack on more than one accused. Okay, well, hang on. He'd told Jack on more than one occasion that he wanted to be just like him when he grew up, and Jack had assured the boy that his flesh would fall off his bones soon enough, and he'd grow up to be a fine skeleton too. Okay, so I wasn't misreading that. Jack reached the top of the stairs where the mayor was already waiting for him. Jack tossed the corpse kid into the air for good luck before placing him atop the mayor's oversized hat, then gave the mayor a solid handshake. The mayor was always talking about them being a team. Jack had never felt prouder to call each one of his two faces a friend. It's great to be home, Jack announced. Everyone broke into applause. Jack beamed as he looked over his friends and neighbors. Yes, this was indeed where he belonged, among the dark, dismal, wonderful, terrifying creatures of the night. He would never again question his place in this eerie world. From the distance, a deep ho-ho-ho carried on the wind. The Halloween townsfolk tipped their chins up. The violet black, the moon was fat and full. The silhouette of a sleigh and 8 reindeer crossed its face. Happy Halloween, Santa called down to them. Jack lifted a hand to wave in answer, Merry Christmas. Jack was pleased to know there were no hard feelings. Holiday kings had to stick together after all. He would never take over another holiday again, but there could come a time when he needed Sandy's help. One day he might be too sick to lead the scare team into the land of the living on October 31st. Santa Claus or that giant pink bunny might have to don a ghost costume and lead the haunting for him. The night slowly filled with tiny white sparkles. The townsfolk gazed up in wonder. What were these bright spots? They were like stars they had never been stars above Halloween Town before. Their nights were a thick, unbroken sheen of black, except for the light of the moon. But these stars were falling. They fluttered down an icy waltz. What's this? The corpse kid asked, catching a flake in his rotten palm of his hand. What's this? Mr. Hyde echoed, equally befuddled. The mayor stuck out his tongue and caught a flake at the icy zing. His head immediately rotated to his happy side. Despite none of Halloween Town's residents ever having experienced snow, the magic in the air drew smiles on their faces. The townspeople began to frolic and play. The lake at the edge of town froze over into smooth ice, and the vampires pasted knife blades onto the bottom of their shoes and wobbled over on the ice, skating around like happy, clumsy children. They used their umbrella handles like hockey sticks to pass a pumpkin back and forth. At the edge of the lake, Behemoth and the undersea girl flopped their backs into a deep snowdrift and waved their arms and legs to make funny shapes. Behemoth thought they looked like angels in the snow, but the undersea girl scoffed and insisted with wide wings clearly made them snowbats. A snowball flew through the air and smacked Jack right in his eye cavern. He sputtered in surprise and wiped away the snow when he saw Lock, Shock, and Barrel giggling as they hid behind the frozen fountain. He tipped back his skull and laughed heartily. He couldn't stay mad at those scamps for long, even if they had caused trouble for him. Oogie Boogie was only a memory now, and as far as Jack was concerned, so was his ire. The simple truth was that Jack was exactly where he belonged. He was a creature of the night, a fearsome ghoul. He, Jack Skellington, was the Pumpkin King. Moving away from the crowd, Sally wandered to the gates outside of Jack's house and plucked a thistle from the same clump she had admired before. She twirled it between her fingers, studying it closely in the snowfall as she strolled through town. Oh, how she'd hoped there would be no more visions, no more fire, unless it was on a candle in a jack-o'-lantern. The familiar whine of Dr. Finkelstein's wheelchair made her look up in surprise. The evil scientist, accompanied by a female creation he had been working on so diligently in his laboratory, wheeled into town square. "Careful, my precious jewel," he purred to his companion. Sally spied on them from a distance. She didn't run away this time. She was done fleeing. She had her sewing and made good friends with a hanging tree. Besides, Dr. Finkelstein had a new companion now. The latest animated corpse was Sally's opportunity, even in every way. Oh, Sally's opposite in every way. The new assistant, dressed in an expensive fur stole and a pearl necklace, was all hard bone and freakishly angled. A female version of the doctor himself, Sally thought with a laugh. From the opposite side of the town square, Jack also gasped at the appearance of Dr. Finkelstein and his uncanny female double. Well, he's finally made his match, Jack thought. Sally was never right for him. She was far too curious, too clever, too kind. Speaking of Sally, where is she? Jack's chest swelled as he thought of the rag doll who had come to his rescue when he'd seen her in danger in Oogie Boogie's lair. He had felt a slice of fear that cut far deeper than his concern for his fellow citizens. Sally had been there in the shadows, so often just behind the scenes, sparkling magic dust to help him on whatever quest beckoned him. He recalled her delivering the basket of abstinence and provisions, making his Sandy Claus costume, sneaking into Oogie Boogie's lair to save Sandy Claus. She'd even tried to warn him, but he hadn't listened. What a fool he'd been. Would she ever forgive him? He finally caught sight of her slipping through the town gates. Where was she going? Why wasn't she celebrating with everyone else? He'd made such a mess of things, but now all he desired was to tie up one final loose end. And there was only one thing he still had to put right. Sally climbed to the top of Spiral Hill, searching for a moment of respite away from the unruly partiers. She clutched the thistle she had in her hand. Fortunately, it hadn't burst into flames as part of another vision. It was simply a flower. She sighed to herself as she plucked off the petals in the moonlight. He loads me not, he loads me, he loads me not. She heard soft footsteps behind her and turned with a gasp. It was Jack. Who else would it be? Jack Skellington had entered the cemetery and now stood at the bottom of Spiral Hill with a hand pressed against his chest. "My dearest friend," he called up to her. "Oh, my dear friend," he called out to her. "May I join you?" Her stitched mouth tugged into a smile. Jack climbed the snow-covered hill slowly, taking his time on this most important step of settling things right. At the top, he extended a bony hand to her. She took his hand in her own cloth one. For so long, she'd been shy around the Pumpkin King, but something seemed different now. Maybe it was that Christmas magic Jack was always talking about, or maybe it was a different kind of magic the two of them had summoned on their own. She felt a tug of another premonition, a lovely one this time. "Come be with me, my dearest Jack," she whispered. They clasped hands beneath the moonlight while Zero floated happily uh, amid a inner circles, clinging to the underside of Spiral Hill. "Sally, it's clear now that," Jack started. "We're simply meant to be," she finished. They found each other in an embrace beneath the moonlight. Sally's cloth lips brushed a tender kiss against Jack's mouth. Her soft arms surrounded his angular shoulders. The snow had stopped falling, but Jack that the world now felt that the world now held more magic than ever before. He thought back to the previous Halloween when all the cheers and murmurs from the other successful holidays hadn't blustered bolstered his spirits as it reliably had in the past. He'd felt something was missing in his life, like a hole in his undead heart. But all that time, it wasn't change he'd been searching for. It wasn't a different holiday or town with holiday weather decorating front porches instead of jack-o'-lanterns. What he'd been desperately searching for in the world for had been right in front of him the whole time. Sally had filled the hole in his heart with well wishes and delicious treats, and then she had mended that hole with her gentle courage. Sally, unlike Jack, didn't spare a thought for the past as they held each other. She leaned her head against the Pumpkin King's bony shoulders and let herself dreamily live in the present. Her affections for Jack had been growing like a flower in her cemetery garden, starting as a shy seed, flourishing with everyone looking and kind words, and now bursting into bloom. She imagined a great future of never again being locked away in Dr. Finkelstein's castle and being free to explore and dance and celebrate, just like all the townsfolk, with her and Jack always there for each other through the darkest of nights. As they stood gazing at each other, Zero flew off into the sky, his pumpkin nose shining as bright as the first star ever to look down on the land of nightmares. That night, every resident of Halloween Town fell asleep in a soft melody being performed by the Undead Ensemble, which played a serenade for Jack and Sally and everyone who treasured the beautiful darkest of Halloween. That is finally the end. We finally got through this. I do hope you remember to leave a like, share, comment, subscribe, and all that fun stuff. And if y'all please excuse me, I need to go cry myself to sleep. And remember to have a happy Halloween and be safe out there. Goodbye.